Olá, sou a Mariana Alvim, bem-vindos ao Vale a Pena, o meu podcast onde conhecemos as pessoas enquanto leitores, com o apoio da WUC, a maior livraria online portuguesa. Fiquem por aí, vale a pena. Today I have with me Joël Dicker, so thank you very much for coming.
Hi Mariana, thank you.
When I met Joël, the first thing I said, he gave me a handshake and I said, I'm sorry, I have to kiss you. I'm a big fan. So
I'm very happy with that.
So let's get to meet you a little, of course, as a reader also. But first, let's talk a little bit about yourself. So your mother was a bookseller. She worked on a bookstore. Your father, a literary teacher. That sure helped you discover on an early age the pleasure of books. How old were you when you fell in love with reading?
No, I don't know. What I remember is enjoying like someone telling me a story.
Okay.
That's for since I'm a young kid. And I think that for me, my parents reading me every night a book or part of a book was something very important. I'm saying part of a book because there were also those books that were like, I don't know, 1 or 2 chapters a night. And you were like, oh, please, one more. And then they will say maybe yes, maybe no. So you have to wait till the day after. And I think, when I remember that, I realized that Netflix didn't invent anything. They're just reproducing the codes. I'm not blaming. I'm just saying they're just reproducing the codes that literature and books have created. And before binging or before I can't wait for next to hear about the story. Before Netflix, there were books. What I remember very vividly was the pleasure of having someone telling me a story. And I do think that it's still the way I write and the way I work. I think my books are really this kind of stories, like stories that
you
are...
have short chapters.
Short chapters, but also, it's from the orality. I think that's what is maybe special in my books, because I'm trying sometimes to think about it, because my readers, or I've been asked so many times, how do you do, for the readers to be so involved in the story? And I think that the answer is in the way I like stories, which means being told stories, because when a story is being told to you, you are working hand in hand with the person telling the story. Because you need the person telling you the story to get the story, of course, but the person telling the story needs your attention to get telling the story. And if you're telling a story to a few people and all of a sudden everybody leaves the room, well, you don't tell a story anymore. You can tell the story, but it doesn't make any sense. So you need each other, and I think that this is the way I work. I'm very aware that my books need the attention and the work from the readers to create the characters and to create the settings and to make the story works.
Yeah, and to read next and next. Same as you have at Netflix. At our time, we had to wait a week or a day for the next episode. And
it was
now
exciting.
The kids just play next.
Yeah.
Even we do that, of course. Yesterday, I told you, I started reading, your book just arrived yesterday, and I started reading it after dinner. And I was like, it's a page turner, the Animal Selvagem. Animal Selvagem, we'll get there. But yeah, you're I know you take your time writing it, but you have rhythm.
Yeah.
Fast pace.
Yeah, that's also the thing is the book, when the book came out first in French, the day after the release, I was signing books in a bookstore, and there's few people handing me the book to be signed, and they already read the book.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, very good. What is the next one? I'm like, guys, the book was released 1 day ago, and it took me 2 years to write it. But I love this feeling. And, I love this, it's like a great meal, when someone can cook something for hours, and then it's so good that you just devour it. You just eat it in 10 minutes, because it's so good.
I was sorry that I didn't have it earlier, your book, in order to read it.
No worry. And
then yesterday I started reading it at night, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to finish it, but then I'll read half actually my husband asked, what time is it? And I was like, 1:30 a.m. Maybe I should shut my light. So yeah,
it's a good thing.
It's another page turner, and I'm loving it. And a few days ago, I was telling a friend that I miss those books because we don't find them always. Those books that you're eager throughout the day to go back to your house to read again. So yours have that effect. So here's a compliment, sure.
Thank you very much.
So you studied law, and you tried to be an actor, but you always knew you wanted to write. When did you discover? Because you said in an interview that I want to write because I love reading. But when did you discover that passion? When did you know that you wanted to write?
No, I think it always always came along. I think I always knew I would be writing. Like, I don't know when I decided that I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a writer. But I knew that quite quickly that writing would be part of my daily life, because I was used to do this, and I was like reading and writing and reading and writing. But it took me time to connect the two things together. It might sound strange today, but it's true that when you're a kid, because I'm talking like when I was, 6, 7, 8, it was at a very early stage. And I think that's the common link between it is just like loving stories. And I wanted to read stories, I wanted to write stories. It was just, just whatever it is, I just want to be in the world of the fiction.
So you said once, I picked up old interviews also, of course, and you said that before the affair of Harry Quebert, you said that you had 4 books written before that were refused by publishers. Mm-hmm. And then you said, because I wanted to write to get published, then I decided to have fun. And then Harry Quebert came along. Are you still having fun? Yeah,
well, you cannot spend so many times, so much effort. Like, you cannot write a book for 2 years and sacrificing like your daily life for it and not having fun. I mean, that for me would be impossible. So now I'm still having fun. I'm still having a lot of fun. It's still, it's funny because I've written books that have been refused by all the publishers and read by no one. And I've written books that were read by millions of people. And you know what? The feelings are the same when you write them.
Wow.
And that's a good thing.
Of course.
That's a good thing. And when I go back to my work table in Geneva, I don't think, or I don't see, or I forget about the readers and the success, or maybe the people waiting or expecting. It's really just about, what do I want to do? How am I going to do this? Okay. It's mostly about, a challenge, and mostly about overcoming doubts, because everything is doubts. You have an idea and you think it's not good, or it's not the right one, and you keep challenging yourself. And I think that as long as there is this, like, all these doubts that are the same doubts since forever, I think it's good. And you still work, you still write 12 hours a day, as you did on the first... Well, as much as I can. I don't have, unfortunately for now, I don't have 12 hours a day anymore to write, because I have a publishing house now. I have to travel a lot to promote the books. Yeah. I have a family. I have like many things, which is also good things, but I have many things that are... time limiting. Yeah, let's use it. It's a nice word, But in the end, what is very important is also, what I like is feeling the frustration of not being able to write. And that's a very important thing, because when I was an unpublished author and I was writing, I had all these things to do on the side, and like working, studying, meeting my friends, and do all this stuff. So finding the time to write was not easy, and I had to sacrifice some holidays, sometimes with my friends. So I had to find the times to write. And then I became a published author, and I became able to make a living from my books. And so all of a sudden, your days are built about, you can write whatever you want, or as much as you want. And the thing is, being today, with all this success, time limited, to use your word, in writing, it's such a great thing. Because every time I'm time limited, every time I have to stop writing to do something else, if I feel frustration, it's like, but I'm into my story, so it's good. You need to have this frustration. You need to be like, because I think this is the moments, those are the key moments where the idea work and rework, because you leave the room, you go with of course your head is like now completely stuck with your idea, and you're doing something, you're interrupted, and you're going to do meet someone, work, like deal with my publishing house, or get my kids, or come for promotion, whatever it is. You have this idea that keeps working, and it's going to evolve in a different way. And that's a fantastic feeling, I think. Yeah, especially being a dad, you learn to manage your time. Yeah. You have to, you have a little time free. Il faut profiter. It's true. Yeah, okay. So I'm in the middle of your latest book, your last book, and I love them all. They're all, I reread Baltimore Family, and I don't know if you still remember all your characters. And she's of course I do. You do? Yeah. I love Anita. Yeah.
I love Anita.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's secondary character, but she stays with me. There are
Well,
stories that
she's a secondary character because she's...
No, she's not. She's important to the
she's
story.
important to the story.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I cannot say, of course, but the misunderstanding that happened and what happened because of the misunderstanding, I suffered. So, but people all, I assume they know your books and everything is online. So let's only talk about your latest one, Animal Selvagem. Just came out in Portugal, a wild animal. You want to talk a little about it?
Yeah. So it's a story. It's set in Geneva and it starts this way. A morning of July 2022, two people barge into a jewelry store in Geneva and it's a heist. They're about to start a heist. And one of them...
sorry to interrupt you, instead of a murder case this time.
It's true. There is no murder.
Exactly.
It's a heist. And they barge into the jewelry store, like, it's a hold up, they scream, and everybody in the store just like put their hands in the air. And one of these two persons have a timer in his hand and starts timing, and they have 7 minutes.
Tick tack, tick tack.
Tick tack, tick tack. The heist is starting, and you turn the page. You leave them there, you turn the page, and you go back 20 days before, and you meet Sophie, a beautiful 40-year-old woman. It's early morning in Geneva, in her beautiful house. She's a lawyer, the husband is a banker. He's still sleeping, and she's having a coffee at 6 in the morning in her kitchen. And she's just enjoying this moment alone, watching outside through the window. And what she doesn't know, but we reader know it, is there's a man spying on her. And every morning there's a man coming into the woods next door, and from the woods he can see the kitchen, and he watches her. He's stalking her, and this man is the neighbor. And at the same time, on that same day, another man arrived in Geneva in his car. He just arrived from a long drive, and this guy is going to be the big bang of the beginning of the story. And you understand that those three people, and of course, are tied to the heist, and that's the beginning of a wild animal.
Yeah, and there's one old interview you gave that, for example, about Harry Quebert, that you didn't know, for example, while you were writing the book, you didn't know who killed Nola, the girl that Harry Quebert was suspected of killing, not to spoil who hasn't read the book yet. But I imagine you, especially on this book, because you have the 7 minutes, tick-tack for the heist, the theft. But you also have 6 months earlier, you have 20 years, and you have this chronology with before her 40th birthday, then before Greg finds out something I cannot spoil, but I imagine you with tons of Post-its on your office wall.
No, I don't. No, I don't have a plan, and I don't really know what is going to happen next in the story.
You don't? Because
my
you
pleasure.
plant the seeds that I understand in the end. So I thought that you knew ahead the ending, and you said that in an interview, and I said, how? What you...
Yeah, no, you don't plant a seed, you create a garden. Okay. It's a little different. So you're like, what should I do? And the thing is, you're allowed to plant and replant and take away all the plants that you want. All you know is you want a beautiful garden. What means beautiful, you don't really know. But so you're gonna work on it and work again. And it's a technique that is, if we can call that a technique, that is based on not knowing what you want, but knowing what you don't want. And what I mean is I write a lot and I cut a lot. I know that when I'm writing a sentence or a page or whatever I write, whatever I create, I know that there's 5% chance that it's going to stay in the book in the end. When I delete, when I take away 1 page, 2 page, 20 pages, 100 pages, when I do that, I know 99.99% sure that it's the right move to do. And so actually when I take off part of the story, I know where I'm going. It's very fulfilling. When I write, I'm like, why am I going with this? But the entire process is fun. I know that sometimes when I say it like this, it seems very a never-ending process or never-ending story. But actually, it's like a game, am I going to find a way? How am I going to find a way?
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun.
It's like a challenge for yourself.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. So book tours, you're a publisher, your own publishing house, the books you write, family. When are you able to read?
Whenever I have a chance.
You carry a book along with you.
But reading, it's a very good question, because most of the people, when you tell them like what do you read or you ask about reading, you have either like readers that have like that are reading very avidly a lot of books, or you have people who are telling you, yeah, I'd love to read something, but I don't have time. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying this, like, I don't have time to read, I think is one of the big problems we have today is we don't have time. But look at your phone. Because now iPhones give you an update every week on how many hours you spend on Instagram and TikTok and I don't know what, and scrolling stupidities. And I'm among those people. So I'm not judging. I'm in this crew and I'm there with you. What I mean is like, and I think it's very important to remind this to everybody. Reading is not something that you plan and say, okay, every Tuesday night, I need to put my phone away. I need to find a very boring book. And I'm going to sit on my sofa and force myself to read this horrible book, and it's horrible.
Don't punish yourself. It's not like that.
Reading is when you have time to read. And when do you have time to read? On the metro, on the bus, when you go to work. When you have a lunch break at work and you're not going out with their colleagues, when you're waiting for someone that you have to meet and is late, when you're waiting for the doctor in the waiting room and the doctor is always late, sorry for the doctors. But this is where you have to have a book with you and pull out your book and read. And we all have our bags filled with, in the morning we take an apple or a protein bar, or we make this like specialty. We take the time to plan, our day and to take what is important for us. Let's add a book, a small size like that fits in your pocket, and have a book on you. And every day for 10 minutes, pull out your book and read for 10 minutes. And I think that's a challenge that works because everybody loves to read. Not everybody knows it yet, but everybody loves it. And I think that it's a challenge that you can do to your parents, grandparents, kids, colleagues, whatever. Say, okay, you know what? Read 10 minutes a day for 10 days. Here is a great book. You also have to help people that are not readers to find a book. And you know what? There's so many books that there's any topics, whatever you like. It can be football, flowers, thrilling stories.
Fiction,
whatever,
non-fiction.
Non-fiction, whatever you like, there's a book about it.
Yeah.
This is why it's amazing. So find the right book, give it 10 minutes a day, and try this for 10 days. And you're going to see that after those 10 days, you're going to be a reader, because being a reader just means have a book with you and take your book when you have a time, when you have a chance. Sometimes it's going to be like 10 minutes a day. Sometimes it's going to be 2 minutes, sometimes 0 minutes, sometimes an hour. And you're going to see yourself, and you're going to find a new personality in yourself, which is the reader that is just avid to get on the bus or on the metro, or to have 5 minutes for yourself and to take 5 minutes to read.
Yeah, exactly. I learned that in this podcast because a lot of people lost the habit of reading, but no one says, I don't like to read. They just said, I lost the habit, or I don't have time, or I said, you don't have time, but you watch a series or you watch reels on Instagram. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that's a great advice. So I know you love Gogol and Dostoevsky, and you chose a book from the latter. So in some say it was inspired by Gogol's work, among other writers. So the first book you chose, Les Pauvres Gens. Dostoevsky, poor people or poor folk. It's also translated into Portuguese, gente pobre. Tell me about it.
Oh, it's a fantastic book. I think it's his first book.
It is?
It is, yeah.
It is his first.
And
he wrote it over the span of 9 months.
It's an exchange of letters between two people. And we find those two, it's a beautiful, I want to say couple, with Maker Divushkin, who is he's a functionary. You say a functionary in English. He's a
public servant?
He's a public servant.
Okay.
And thank you. And he's very poor. But he's madly in love with this young woman who is as poor as he is. It's a beautiful love story about two people. And you feel for them. You feel especially for him. And you feel especially for his kindness, I want to say. And for me, it's one of the most beautiful books of Dostoevsky. It's actually also a very short one. So it's very like if you want to give it a try, if you want to try Dostoevsky in something that is not like too frightening, in my memory, it's a short book. So it's very easy to carry on the subway or on the bus. We were talking about this just a few minutes before. So that's for me one of the most powerful books that I've read for a very long time.
I always remember if I liked the book, if I enjoyed it, but I forget the story. Do you always remember the stories? Like you remember the name of the Makar Devushkin, which is not easy to memorize.
Yeah, I forget the name. I think it's Barbara, no?
Varvara Drovasalova.
Varvara. Usually I remember most of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and also when I really loved the book, like everybody, I also remember when I read it. I remember I was in Canada and I was like traveling there and I was in these beautiful landscapes and everything around, and I was just like more obsessed about the book than what was outside, you know?
With the tourism.
Yeah.
And was it your first Dostoevsky?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. But I think it was the very first that I think it put me back. Because, you know, there's all these authors that you've been told, because I was 20, I think, when I read this book, and people tell you like, oh, you have to read this author and this is fantastic. And you read it, but then you don't get it because maybe you're too young or maybe it's not the right moment. So this is why I was saying before, we can't really advise for a book unless we know a bit of you, you know? And sometimes people ask me like, okay, what do you recommend? I'm like, no, it's, I can tell you what I liked lately, but it doesn't mean that you're going to like it. And you have to ask questions to help someone find a book.
Yeah, so, you know, sometimes the people also ask me because of this podcast, and they don't give me clues. Like, I want to give a book to my son. What can I give him? Or to my friend's birthday. I don't know her. So usually you don't have time to always give advice. So I say, like, the best thing to do is go to a bookstore.
It's so true.
And ask the guy who works there, and he will help you. Or if it's your son, take him there.
Yeah.
Let him choose.
You're so right. You know, we have these people called booksellers. I don't know if you've heard about them. They are the people that are going to help you really discover books, because they're going to make you read books that you would have never read without them. And I remember a book, I don't know if it's in my list, 1973, 4 and 5. No. So, and I mentioned it because I just saw them in Portuguese at the book fair, so I know it exists. It's a trilogy called 1793, 1793. And 93, 94, 95. That's the trilogy.
I'll write it down and I'll put it.
It's a Swedish author. His name is Niklas Natt Och Dag. And it's fantastic. And I read this book. I remember the first one. I was going on a holiday and I go to the bookstore. And I'm like looking for a book. And the bookstore is like, oh, you had to read this book. And he shows me this book like 1793. I'm like, the title doesn't make sense. The cover is horrible. I read the back cover and I'm like, no, thank you. But as I'm someone that doesn't know how to say no, I'm like, thank you, I'm going to buy it. So I bought the book that you like. It was like everything was repelling me on this book. Like really, nothing was attracting me. Not my gender.
And you still read it.
And I took it with me. And I took it on the holiday. So I was piling like to doing my stuff. And I put this book with other books in my suitcase. And of course, when you have a lot of time, you read all your books and finally I have this one. Like, I have this book with me. It's the only book in French, the only one I can read. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. Fantastic. One of the most amazing books that I've read in a long time.
Okay.
It's a fantastic story because it's set in the end of the century in 1793 about Sweden and Stockholm at that time. So there's a kind of investigation because they find a body with like no head, no arm, no legs in the sea, and there's two people investigating, but we don't really care about the investigation. It's really about the feelings, the smells, everything. And it's really a fantastic book, a fantastic trilogy. So you have to read it.
Okay, I'll write it down on the description of this episode. The Swedish author, Niklas, I don't know how to spell.
Niklas Natt Och Dag.
Natt Och Dag. I'll write it down.
N-A-C-H and then O-C-H and that O.
Don't worry. I'll like Google it. Yeah, don't worry.
Swedish author 1793, you're going to find it.
Okay, 1793. And then the Dostoevsky, Poor People, Gente Pobre. And because of what you just said about 1793, you also, especially, you care about the feelings. So Makar Devushkin, he's in love with literature.
Yeah.
That's why you also like him and the story. And she loses interest. She marries this widow.
Yeah, and he's heartbroken. But I think what really touches me in the Gente Pobre.
Gente Pobre, right?
Gente Pobre.
Yeah.
I need to improve my
Les Pauvres Gens.
Les Pauvres Gens was really this guy because he loves us so much. You know, it's a love story for me that is how a love story should be.
Aww.
Difficult.
Okay.
Nothing works. You feel for him, because when it's nice, it's boring. Nice is boring,
I like happy endings.
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
It's not the truth. It's half of them end very badly in a divorce. So it's not the truth.
It's realistic.
It's realistic.
Gente pobre, poor folk or poor people by Dostoevsky. Now, another book you chose, La Promesse de l'Aube, Promise at Dawn, also in Portuguese, A Promessa by Romain Gary.
Yeah, French author, one of the greatest French author of the last century, according to me. No, I really loved it. I mean, he really had an impact on me because he was not only a great author, but he's the person he was. Like, he was such a character. He was during World War II. He was a war pilot, a French war pilot in the UK. And while he was like fighting in the air, he was fighting in the air during the day, and during the night he was writing a book. And this book was Éducation Européenne, European Education. I don't know if it exists in Portuguese. It was his first book. And it was the beginning of a great career. He won I think in 1954, he won the Prix Goncourt in France, which is one of the biggest literary award in France that you can have once in a lifetime for an author.
He won it twice.
Yeah.
He cheated.
He didn't cheat it.
No, but he pretended.
He was a character. So after that, he wrote many books. And at the end of his career, not the end of his career, but he killed himself. So he was like, at the end of his career, he was convinced that critics were not judging his book because of the value of the writing, but just by his name. It's like, people see my name and they're just like, it's bad. It's Romain Gary. He's a successful guy, so it's bad. And so he decided to write a novel under a fake name, and Émile Ajar. And this fake name gave him for a second time the Prix Goncourt. So he became the only author that got the Prix Goncourt twice.
Yeah, in 1975.
Yeah, and he proved this point, saying, you see, people are judging me because of my name and not because of my words and the quality of my books. A great guy. I mean, a fantastic character.
And he got away with it at the time because his nephew pretended to be him.
Absolutely.
So only after his death was the truth revealed. This is amazing.
Paul Pavlovich, he was the nephew, and he impersonates Émile Ajar because, of course, the press and everybody wanted to meet this Émile Ajar guy. So he asked his nephew. And it's not a great, it's not a great story in the end, in the sense that all of them felt at some point like Paul Pavlovich felt like he was Émile Ajar, but he was not. So it was difficult for him. Romain Gary was like, but I am the author and I cannot tell the people, because he was, of course, proud of his work. So it's a bit of a bittersweet story because of this aspect. But what I wanted to tell you about Romain Gary is this book, La Promesse de l'Aube, that you just mentioned.
Yeah, A Promessa.
And this is his biography. It's a novel, so it's a bit like, it's a fiction, but it's in between the lines is the story of him and his mother. That was he grew up with his mother. The father was missing in action, and they came together from, I think, Lithuania or Poland. I think he's Polish, but he was born.
Yeah, he was born in Lithuania.
Yeah, he was born in Lithuania, then went to Poland, I think, with the mother. And from Poland to France.
Yeah, when he was 14, they emigrated illegally to France.
To Nice, yeah. And so he was alone with his mother, and the mother was full of ambition for him. And she was like, he will become a great author and a pilot and an ambassador. And he became all of this. He became ambassador of France around the world. He became this amazing author. He was decorated for his service during the war. He was the good guy.
Okay, so you read them all?
I read them all, yeah.
Okay, Romain Gary was one of the
Very
favorites.
interesting book that he wrote is also called, and I'm sure it exists in Portuguese, it's called White Dog.
White Dog.
Yeah, very interesting book, how he wrote this book when he was in Los Angeles as a general counsel of France.
Okay.
And one day, it's a rainy day, his dog, Sandy, comes back at home with another dog, a German Shepherd. And he's like, Romain Gary is like, "Mom, what a cute dog." And he let his dog, Sandy, comes into the house. And the other one is like waiting at the door. And it's raining outside. So he tells the guy, "Come in." So the dog comes into the house and spends a few days into the house. The guy is asking around like, "I found this dog on the street. And this dog came back to my house with my other dog, my legitimate dog."
He brought a friend.
Like, do you know him? No one knows the dog. So like, he keeps the dog. He's like, "Hey, he's a cute dog, very friendly dog, like very sweet, very cute dog." And after a few days, ding dong, the postman comes to the house to deliver stuff. And the dog sees the postman and he became completely crazy. He wants to attack the postman. So Romain Gary held the dog. The postman goes away. He's like, "What happened to the dog? I don't know, whatever." The day after, the guy from for the swimming pool, like to take care of the swimming pool, comes. And the dog sees the guy, it becomes completely crazy. This sweet dog becomes completely crazy. And Romain Gary realized that both the postman and the employee for the swimming pool are black. They're black people. And he realized that this dog is a police dog that escaped and is trained for the riots. You know, it's that time in the States with the segregation. He's trained to attack black people during the riots and during the demonstration. And he's like, "What the hell? My dog is a racist dog."
Yeah,
and he's like, "How am I going to untrain this dog to become not racist?" It's fantastic. That's just the beginning. I'm just trying to sell many books.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor.
It's a fantastic book. White Dog by Romain Gary.
His biggest success, one of his biggest success, was La vie devant soi, the life before us. Also with the pseudonym Émile Ajar.
La vie devant soi is the one that got the prix Goncourt.
Ouais. Yes. Exactly, in 75. Okay, so A Promessa by Romain Gary and also White Dog. I'll check it out if there's in Portuguese and I'll write on the comments. Another book you chose, and this I had a doubt because you said Les Valeureux.
Yeah.
By Albert Cohen. But there's a series of 4, and this one is a 4th, or you chose the whole series. Because it's a series, Valeureux.
Yeah, Les Valeureux is one of the books. It's true. No, I think if there's one book, it will be Belle du Seigneur. I don't know if it exists in Portuguese.
It's actually, I checked it out.
Yeah.
It's the only one translated into Portuguese.
Okay, so that's the one you have to read.
Okay, because I saw in another interview from you that you said it was the novel you would most like to have written is this one.
Belle du Seigneur.
Yeah, I saw that in The Guardian.
Oh, what a master. Let me tell you, it's a book, it's more than 1,000 pages. It's the only book in my life that I read. Every page I was reading, I was like, oh my God, only like 900 pages left. Oh my God, only like 800 pages left. It was such a fantastic feeling. And I've never found this feeling again. And it's the only book that when people haven't read it yet, I'm like, you're so lucky. You're so lucky you haven't read this book yet because you're going to feel like all these feelings and all this, like it's an amazing story about the love between Solal and so it's a story of Solal is one of the boss at the United Nations, and he's working with a guy under him, Adrien Dum. Adrien Dum is married to this beautiful woman, and Solal, the boss of Adrien, falls in love with Ariane, the wife of Adrien, and is going to charm her. And it's the beginning, like it's a love triangle. It's very funny. It's a story about love. It's amazing. And there are other books around it, among them Les Valeureux. Those books were actually part of Belle du Seigneur, but that was already so big that the publisher of Albert Cohen said, listen, man, your book is already like more than 1,000 pages. You have to take away some of them. So he took away some parts of it. I love all of them because you find back all this, like it's full of joy and it's so funny. It's funny because Albert Cohen was a very depressed guy and a very sad person. And if you see an interview of him, he's just like miserable and like not happy. And his books are so funny and so full of life. I like it.
Okay, so he was happier writing than in real life.
I guess this is why books are so amazing, because they're really an escape to our own existence.
Actually, your latest book happens in Geneva, but you said that about your first books because they all were spent in the US, and you said because I know it less than I know Geneva. It's true.
It's sometimes, reality is an obstacle to fiction. Because if you know too much, or for me, like living in Geneva and creating a fiction in Geneva was a bit difficult at first because I'm like, man, I know Geneva, and for some reason, it's difficult for me to invent or create a new street in Geneva. I had no problem doing this in New York City, but in Geneva where I live, I was like, it's not really going to work. Okay. And it took me time to be able to overcome this challenge.
You said that also in an interview. I'm still young. I'm going to experiment all.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's only my 7th book. The Wild Animal is only my 7th book. And I know I feel, and I'm happy about that, I have much more stuff to do and to create and to explore in front of me that I've done.
Great. I like the only my 7th book. Great. Carry on. So, Le Valeureux, it's a series, but in Portuguese, we only have exactly what you chose. Belle do Senhor is A Bela do Senhor. Last book you chose. Actually, you chose an author. Philip Roth, all books.
Yeah.
So, what I tried to do is, in this podcast, I interviewed, you remember American Psycho?
Yeah.
I interviewed Bret Easton Ellis. He came to Portugal, so I had the honor of interviewing him. And he chose Sabbath Theatre. And then we have this Portuguese publisher and poet, and actually she just won her second award with her poetry, Maria do Rosário Pedreira, and she chose Deception, which is dialogues between, engano in Portuguese, a dialogue between lovers. You know, actually I was reading that and I stopped because your 7th book arrived. I traded you over Philip Roth, actually.
Thank you.
The other way around.
I feel very honored.
So which book would you recommend for someone who doesn't know Philip Roth to begin with?
Well, I'm halfway now into his biography. Okay. A biography was just released, and I'm sure it exists in Portuguese as well. It was released in English, I think, a year or two ago. And it's a very long book, so I'm going slowly and slowly. And also I'm going slowly and slowly because every time I go back to this biography, I feel like I'm reunited with Philip Roth. You know that you love an author when you feel like you know him because you read his book, which I know is completely bullshit. Sorry, it's completely bollocks to you because I'm an author myself. But for me, I've read so much of him. I've been so interested into his work. I've researched so much about him that I feel like I know him, which is not true, I know, but I'm like, it's just funny. So his biography, it's amazing because you realize how long his path as an author was. I mean, how difficult his path was. And I think for any author, even you're a successful author, you're not published yet, or whatever you are, or whatever you feel as an author, I think that reading his biography, it's so important to get that being an author, it's only up and downs. It's a lot of failure, it's a lot of failing, it's a lot of unsuccess, and sometimes a bit of a success. It's important to remember that, how challenging this the work is, how challenging writing a book is, how challenging it is as a profession to be an author. So this biography I would recommend, but you have to know a bit of his work, of course.
But it's Human Stain, or which one would you?
Yeah, I think... No, I'd like to go two ways if I'm allowed to. Because
of course.
His first book, and received for this the National Book Award, was Goodbye Columbus, which is actually not a novel, but a few short stories. And I think that it's a great, if you don't know Philip Roth, it's also a great way to enter into his world because all these stories, all these short stories are very funny. And I think that Philip Roth, for me, the first thing about his work is his sense of humor. And this is, some of them are so funny. I remember laughing, reading it and laughing, and this is so good. It's so good to laugh when you read. It's rare to laugh because it's very easy to write a sad story. You imagine like a little dog without parents, alone in the streets, and he's missing a leg and it's pouring outside and it's sad. You know what I mean? To make laugh, it's very difficult. And so Goodbye Columbus it's full of joy, it's full of laugh. I love it. And that would be my first choice. And then I think I'd go for The Human Stain, one of his most important books, or one of the books that made him the most famous worldwide. Human Stain is, when was it released? I think 1997 maybe. So I'm not sure when it was released, but it's...
and we have it in Portuguese also, A Mancha Humana. We have it translated. And
it's this fascinating story of a professor at the university in the fictional town of Athena. and he's telling his story to a fellow author, and he's telling how the story is one day the professor, his name is Coleman Silk, is doing his class, and he's like just checking on the list of the students who are in the class and who are not in the class, and he's like giving them, okay, you're here, you're here, you're here. And those two names never showed up. Since the beginning of the season of the class, he never saw those two students. So he called them ghosts. But the word he used is also an ancient term that can be seen as a racist way of calling a black person. And actually, by fluke, those two people are black. And so everybody's like, oh, you're a racist because you just called those two black people with a racist word. We're like, what? I didn't even know they were black. I never saw them. They never came to my class. And he's fired. There's a huge scandal and he's fired. And so he's telling the story to his fellow author, and actually he's telling his story because himself, he's a black guy, but no one knows it because he was born with a very light skin, and he realized being a kid in this United States of still a form of segregation, he realized that people think he's white. As he realized that he can have a better career and he can like create for himself a better world, pretending he's a white guy.
Yeah, life's easier.
He starts in the army, and then he's gonna. So this guy who is accused of being like a white racist person against black is actually a black guy, but he's stuck in this position, and that's the plot. I'm not spoiling anything. It's just the beginning of the story of The Human Stain by Philip Roth.
A mancha humana in Portuguese. So now, difficult question before we finish. We have La promesse de l'Aube, A Promessa by Romain Gary, Le pauvre Jean, Dostoevsky, Gente Pobre, Le Valeureux, The Belle du Seigneur, Albert Cohen, and Philip Roth, Goodbye Columbus or Human Stain. Pick one.
I'd go with Goodbye Columbus.
Okay. Goodbye Columbus.
Yeah, because you know what? It's a great... We just spoke about books to make people read. And I know that if you guys are listening to us and you're readers, you're going to pick one of these books by yourself and it's going to be easy. But if you're not sure what to read and you're not a very avid reader, Goodbye Columbus is the type of book that you can just slip into your bag or in your pocket. It's a very thin book and read on the bus. But if it's not available in Portuguese, let me give you a second option.
I have to check.
If it's not, read The Poor People.
Since I've met you a little as a reader, I'll recommend readings to you. Mm-hmm. Your structure of going back and forth. You reminded me, well, actually, you're two very different authors, but I also love her, and I wanted to recommend to you. Do you know the Australian author Liane Moriarty?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you read her?
Yeah, I read a book.
Big Little Lies, My Husband's Secret.
The husband's secret.
Okay, my Husband's Secret.
Yeah.
And I recommend also Big Little Lies.
Yeah.
It's great.
I've watched a TV show, but I didn't know.
Okay. So now you know who killed and who was killed.
Yeah.
Because in the book, we know someone was killed and someone killed. We don't know how. Then she goes back. And then there's another one from her I recommend. No TV, so you haven't seen it. I love the title, Truly Madly Guilty. Something happened between these two friends. We don't know what. Then we go back and accompanying them. Then we go to the present, and it's a structure that I think you will enjoy. Okay. Truly Madly Guilty by Liane Moriarty, and also because you chose Romain Gary and his relationship with his lovely relationship with his mother. There's also a book, I find for myself it's sad, but Shuggie Bain by the Scottish-American Douglas Stewart. I also recommend it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you.